At family dinner, my Karen sister raised my rent to $8,800. Everyone laughed at me like I was the family failure. I just smiled, because I knew what was coming next. My name is Vanessa, and I want you to imagine this scene. A crystal-lit dining room packed with relatives who've watched you grow up. All of them turning their heads when your sister, wearing a Chanel suit that costs more than your Honda Civic, announces she's raising your rent to $8,800. She stands there like royalty at a coronation ceremony, her champagne flute catching the overhead lighting, that smirk perfectly practiced, voice smooth as silk and cold as January. She genuinely believed she'd just taught me a valuable lesson, that she'd finally reminded the disappointment daughter of her proper place in the family hierarchy. What she didn't realize was that in exactly 17 minutes, everything she thought she controlled, every assumption about power, family dynamics, and property ownership, was about to explode in her perfectly made-up face. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who shares your DNA, this one's dedicated to you. Because sometimes patience isn't about being weak or passive, it's about strategy waiting for the exact right moment to strike. Growing up as Natalie's younger sister felt like existing inside someone else's highlight reel. She was the chosen one from day one. Yale Law School, graduated top of her class, made junior partner at 32, the living, breathing poster child for everything our parents ever dreamed about. The endless standing ovations for her achievements made it painfully obvious there was no spotlight left for anyone else. I was the quieter one, the more grounded one, the person they called sweet at holiday parties when they struggled to find anything more impressive to mention. Did you hear Natalie just won that pharmaceutical malpractice case? $15 million settlement. Aunt Caroline would practically sing. Then came the sympathy turn. Always identical, that slight head tilt in my direction. And Vanessa, you're still working in that real estate thing, correct? Yes, I was absolutely still working in that real estate thing. And honestly, I was passionate about it. I loved studying neighborhood demographics, identifying investment potential like solving complex equations, touring rundown properties and recognizing their hidden value before the market caught up. But passion didn't earn you respect at our family gatherings. Natalie represented success personified. I was the cautionary tale whispered about when parents worried their own kids weren't ambitious enough. For 6 years, I rented a modest 2-bedroom unit in one of Grandma Dorothy's vintage brownstone buildings on Maple Ridge Avenue. Natalie managed the property for the family as a favor. Or so she reminded everyone at every possible opportunity. My monthly rent sat at $2,400, exactly $300 below market rate. Her generosity translated to precisely $300 worth of superiority ammunition. Most people earning what you make couldn't afford this zip code, she'd mention casually, tossing that condescending smile like spare change into a charity bucket. And for an embarrassingly long time, I actually believed her narrative. I paid rent punctually every single month, even when the heating system died during a February cold snap. Even when she took 4 months to replace a washing machine that leaked all over my bathroom floor. I never pushed back or complained. In her carefully written script, I played the grateful backup dancer who never earned a solo. But 4 years before that devastating Tuesday evening, Grandma Dorothy rewrote the entire story. Every Sunday afternoon before she passed away, I spent hours at Grandma Dorothy's kitchen table organizing her financial paperwork. She was 89 years old, still mentally sharp as a steel trap, but she trusted me to make sense of the complicated statements her investment firm kept sending. The two of us surrounded by towers of cream-colored folders, that remains one of my most treasured memories. One particular evening, with the sky turning deep purple beyond her vintage lace curtains, she handed me a small cream-colored business card, edges softened from years tucked inside her leather wallet. "Your sister has good intentions," she said gently, her weathered hand covering mine. "But she doesn't notice everything happening around her. Sometimes the silent observers turn out to be the sharpest minds in the room. Vanessa. Hold on to that knowledge when your moment arrives." I had absolutely no idea what she meant. Not at that time. Several months later, following her memorial service, everything became crystal clear. Her private attorney, the one Natalie didn't even know existed, contacted me directly. Grandma Dorothy had left me a separate inheritance, completely off the record from the main family estate distribution. Nothing extravagant or flashy, but substantial enough to plant the seeds of a real investment. Enough to completely flip the power structure. The following 3 years became my quiet transformation period. While Natalie continued delivering lectures about fiscal responsibility and becoming more self-sufficient, I was studying property law until midnight, analyzing purchase agreements, establishing accounts under carefully chosen business entity, Maple Ridge Properties LLC. I stopped seeking validation from people who would never offer it. I started constructing real leverage instead. By that point, I discovered through public property records that Grandma Dorothy's old brownstone building, the one where I currently lived, was drowning under crushing debt loads. The current owner, completely separate from Grandma's estate now, was desperate to sell quickly. He needed to unload the property discreetly before foreclosure proceedings started. So I presented him an offer, a precise, completely legitimate offer backed by my inheritance money, my accumulated savings, and a commercial property loan I'd surprisingly qualified for. He accepted without hesitation. And just like that, through Maple Ridge Properties LLC, I became the legal owner and landlord of the exact building my sister believed she managed and controlled. Natalie never noticed the ownership change. She stayed too absorbed in her own reflected glory to bother checking updated property registry records. She continued strutting into family events, bragging extensively about managing Grandma's real estate portfolio, collecting substantial management fees for responsibilities I'd already streamlined and automated. For 4 complete years, she collected imaginary credit and praise while I quietly collected actual monthly rent payments from every tenant. The irony nourished me more deeply than any direct confrontation ever could have. Then arrived that unforgettable night. Grandma Dorothy's formal dining room. 16 relatives present, dinner courses cleared away, wine glasses freshly refilled. Natalie positioned by the bay window like a prosecutor preparing to announce the verdict. Your current monthly rent is $2,400, which sits significantly below current market rates. Comparable apartments on Maple Ridge Avenue are listing between $8,000 and $8,500. I've been essentially subsidizing your entire lifestyle for 6 years. That's over $250,000 from my own resources. She delivered this information with genuine pride, as if martyrdom came with itemized receipts and public recognition ceremonies. Aunt Caroline gasped dramatically like Natalie had just survived a natural disaster. Natalie, you're an absolute angel. Natalie lifted her perfectly manicured hand in mock humility. Please, no praise necessary. I simply value fairness. Vanessa needs to develop genuine independence and stand without family assistance. Therefore, effective next month, your new rent will be $8,800. The silence that crashed over the room was so complete you could hear someone's fork drop onto the Persian rug. Every single eye rotated toward me, the failure, the dependent family burden. I caught my parents' faces, desperately hoping for some support or intervention, but they simply looked away, visibly uncomfortable and embarrassed. Natalie slid a pre-printed lease agreement across the mahogany coffee table like a court judgment. Sign this evening. I glanced down at the papers, then checked my phone. My earlier text message blinked back at me. On my way. Documents prepared. The response was already waiting. 12 minutes away. Natalie misinterpreted my composure as complete surrender. To help everyone understand the situation clearly, she continued, tapping her tablet screen, here are comparable rental listings in surrounding buildings. $8,200. $8,400. $8,700. Even $9,200. I'm actually offering her a discount at $8,800. My phone vibrated again. 8 minutes away. Uncle Harrison cleared his throat awkwardly. Natalie, that's a pretty extreme jump from $2,400. Natalie's smile tightened noticeably. It's market rate. Successful professionals pay market rate. And Vanessa works in property management herself. Nobody in this room should understand these economics better than her. Scattered laughter rippled around the dining room. Cousin Trevor smirked openly. Guess you'll need about 4 roommates, Vanessa. I could physically feel their collective amusement hanging in the air like static electricity. The overlooked sister finally being put in her proper place. Natalie leaned forward, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Sign the new lease tonight or start packing your belongings. I already have 4 Columbia medical students willing to pay $9,000. Her threat lingered in the room like stale perfume. And despite everything, I almost felt sorry for her. She had absolutely no clue she just handed herself an eviction notice, because the building she believed she owned, managed, and dominated? Every square inch of it. Every brick wall, every window frame, every rental payment record belonged to me. And tonight, in front of our entire assembled family, I was about to prove it beyond any doubt. The doorbell chimed. Absolutely perfect timing. Natalie sighed with visible annoyance. Who possibly shows up unannounced on a Tuesday evening? I stood slowly, smoothing down my blouse, my pulse remarkably steady. 17 pairs of eyes tracked my movement as I walked toward the entrance. When I opened the door, a distinguished man in an impeccable navy suit stepped inside, carrying a professional leather briefcase. "Good evening," he said with practiced calm. I turned back toward the silent dining room. "Everyone, this is Mr. Blackwell." Natalie's eyebrow arched sharply. "Your attorney?" she scoffed dismissively. "Actually," I replied smoothly, "he represents Maple Ridge Properties LLC." Mr. Blackwell set his briefcase on the nearest side table, unlatched it methodically, and began distributing identical stapled document packets. His voice carried the kind of authority that makes everyone instinctively straighten their posture. "Good evening. I'm here representing the ownership entity of this property, Maple Ridge Properties." He paused just long enough for the company name to register. "We have updated documentation concerning tenant lease agreements for this building." Confusion spread across every face like a visible wave. Natalie's practiced confidence visibly wavered. Her courtroom persona evaporated instantly. She frowned, adjusted her already perfect suit jacket, and asked the question everyone else was mentally forming. "Wait," she said sharply. "What? Tenant agreements? What is this? I manage this property." Mr. Blackwell adjusted his glasses with deliberate precision. "Not any longer, Miss Natalie. Maple Ridge Properties purchased this building 4 years ago. I'm here tonight on behalf of the actual owner to address some significant irregularities in the management structure." Natalie's face began draining of all color. "That's completely impossible. I would have received notification of any ownership sale. I would have been officially informed." I stepped forward, my voice steady but loud enough for every single relative to hear clearly. "You weren't informed because you were never the legal owner, Natalie. You were simply the property manager. And you didn't know because you never bothered verifying public property records. You stayed too busy lecturing me about independence to notice that I'd been building my own foundation directly beneath your feet." Urgent whispers erupted throughout the room like small fireworks. Cousin Trevor muttered, "Wait, what the hell is actually happening here?" My mother Diane's eyes went wide with genuine shock. My father Kenneth's mouth literally fell open. Natalie's expression shifted to pure fury, breaking through her shock like lightning. "You're lying. This is some kind of sick, twisted joke." Mr. Blackwell opened his briefcase and placed a substantial stack of legal documents on Grandma Dorothy's antique coffee table, with a sound that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent room. Title deeds, property tax receipts, renovation permits, insurance policies. His voice remained clear, professional, and absolutely devastating. All signed by the same individual. Vanessa Montgomery is the sole legal owner of this building and has been for 4 years. The room went absolutely, completely silent. Even Grandma Dorothy's vintage grandfather clock seemed to pause mid-tick. Natalie stumbled backward like she'd been physically struck. "No. This can't be happening. This isn't real." I looked directly into her eyes, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I didn't look away first. "You just attempted to triple my rent on a building that doesn't even belong to you. You tried evicting me from my own property, Natalie. And you did it in front of everyone here, thinking you'd finally put me in my proper place once and for all." The silence shattered with a dozen overlapping reactions. Aunt Caroline whispered, "Oh my God." My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. My mother's wine glass trembled visibly in her hand. Natalie shook her head violently, her perfect composure crumbling like a house built on sand. "This isn't fair. You deliberately tricked me." "You?" "No, Natalie." My voice grew firmer now, stronger than it had ever been in this room full of people who dismissed me for years. "I didn't trick you. I simply stopped allowing you to trick me. I stopped accepting your version of who I was supposed to be, She opened her mouth again, but no sound emerged. The power she'd wielded so casually, so cruelly, had slipped completely from her grasp in a single moment. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the overlooked sister. I wasn't the underachiever, the charity case, the one who needed her handouts and favors. I was the one holding the deed. But I wasn't finished yet. "Mr. Blackwell," I said, my voice carrying a new authority that surprised even me. "Could you please explain to my sister her current residential status?" The attorney consulted his documents with professional detachment. "Certainly. Miss Natalie Montgomery currently occupies Unit 7 under month-to-month rental arrangement. As a tenant of Maple Ridge Properties, she's subject to identical rental agreements as any other resident." The gasp that erupted from the assembled family was sharp, almost theatrical in its intensity. Natalie staggered backward as though struck by lightning. "My unit," she repeated, voice horrified. I folded my arms, years of accumulated humiliation sharpening my words into surgical precision. "Yes, Natalie. You raised my rent in a building where you're just another tenant. Do you understand now? While you were busy performing superiority for everyone in this room, you were actually performing for your landlord." Aunt Caroline whispered something that sounded remarkably like a prayer. Uncle Harrison muttered about karma under his breath. My cousin Trevor, for once in his arrogant life, kept his mouth completely shut. Natalie's composure didn't just crack, it shattered entirely. "This isn't possible. I refuse to pay you a single cent. I'll sue. You'll pay or you'll leave." I cut her off, my voice steady as granite. "The exact same choice you so generously offered me 5 minutes ago. The market rate for your unit is actually $9,200. I've been giving you a family discount at $6,800, but since you clearly believe family discounts represent bad business practice." I let the implication hang heavy in the air. She looked around the room desperately, searching for support that would never materialize. My parents sat frozen, finally unable to shield their golden child from natural consequences. My relatives suddenly found their shoes absolutely fascinating. For the first time in 34 years, they couldn't rush to her defense because she wasn't the victim in this situation. Not anymore. I leaned closer, lowering my voice so theoretically only Natalie could hear, though I knew every person in that room was straining desperately to listen. "You thought you could crush me in front of everyone. You thought you could humiliate me one final time, cement my place as the family failure. But here's the actual truth, Natalie. While you were busy trying to climb above me, I was already standing higher than you ever knew." Her lips trembled like a child's. "You're being cruel." "No," I whispered back, feeling a lifetime of suppressed strength flowing through every word. "I'm finally done being your victim." Mr. Blackwell closed his briefcase with a sharp snap that sounded like a judge's gavel striking wood. "That concludes my business for this evening. Miss Montgomery, you have my contact information if you require anything else." He shook my hand with genuine respect, nodded to the stunned audience, and walked out. The silence that followed was deafening in its completeness. Natalie collapsed back into her chair, her once perfect posture completely broken, her eyes glassy with shock and something that might have been the first real humility of her adult life. I turned toward the door, feeling the accumulated weight of 17 years of belittlement finally sliding off my shoulders like an old coat I no longer needed to wear. I didn't need their applause. I didn't need their approval or validation. The look on my sister's pale face, the absolute silence from those who'd once joined in her laughter at my expense, that was enough. That was everything. As I stepped into the cool evening air, I realized something profound. Revenge hadn't been my original plan when I purchased that building. Survival had been the goal, independence, self-respect, dignity. But sometimes survival becomes its own form of perfect justice. The weeks that followed became a symphony of consequences I'd never dared to dream about. Natalie avoided me initially, retreating into a silence that felt like victory every single day. But then the phone calls started, pleading ones at odd hours, her voice trembling in ways that had once been absolutely unthinkable. "Vanessa, can we work something out?" she begged one night, her golden confidence cracked like a broken mirror. "You can't seriously expect me to pay rent to you. I'm your sister." I almost laughed. The same sister who'd weaponized that word for years, wielding it like a club to remind me that I was lesser, weaker, more dependent. Now she said it like a shield, fragile and desperately thin. You raised my rent to $8,800 without hesitation, I reminded her calmly. Why should I treat you any differently than you treated me? Her silence on the line said everything. Then came my parents. My mother called, her voice brittle with barely contained fury. You've humiliated your sister, Vanessa. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family's reputation? I let her words hang in the air for a long moment before responding. Do you know what you did to me, Mom? All those years you stood by while Natalie belittled me, while she treated me like a burden instead of family. You didn't care about reputation then. You cared about keeping peace with your golden child. Now the truth is simply the truth. She hung up on me, but I didn't cry. I didn't crumble the way I would have years ago. Instead, I leaned into the rhythm of my new life. I managed my tenants with genuine care and respect. I reinvested profits into building improvements, painting the hallways in warm colors that reminded me of Grandma Dorothy's gentle touch. When neighbors stopped me to thank me for fixing things Natalie had neglected for years, I felt pride swell in my chest like warm sunlight. One evening, as I was locking up the lobby after meeting with a contractor about new security cameras, I saw Natalie standing on the sidewalk. Her arms were crossed, her face pale under the streetlight, and she looked smaller somehow, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like she was searching for the sister who used to shrink when she raised her voice. Finally, she whispered, "You've changed, Vanessa." I met her gaze without flinching, without the old familiar urge to look away first. "No, Natalie. I've just stopped letting you control the narrative." She blinked as though the words cut deeper than any anger ever could. She opened her mouth to argue, to fight, to reassert some shadow of her old dominance, but nothing came out. She turned and walked away, her expensive heels clicking against the pavement, the sound fading into the night like the echo of everything she used to represent to me. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the quiet. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely free. Not just from her, but from the crushing weight of needing her approval, her validation, her permission to exist as an equal. My life was mine now, built brick by brick, deed by deed, choice by choice. And that freedom was worth more than any revenge could ever be. It was justice served by my own hands, and it tasted exactly like victory. If this story touched something deep in your heart, I hope you take this truth with you. You're not defined by the voices that try to diminish you. You are not bound to the roles others force you into. Sometimes the greatest power you'll ever claim is the courage to own your story and stand tall in it, no matter who tries to cut you down. If you felt the fire of justice in Vanessa's journey, smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories of quiet strength overcoming loud arrogance. Drop your own story of standing up for yourself in the comments. I read every single one.